Zion lowered his head and whispered seriously. He would help Leticia take revenge until they, the people who wanted Leticia's destruction, felt it would be better to die and get back the wealth and honor stolen from her. He even guaranteed that Leticia would get a new life as long as she followed him. His cold, smiling face looked like a devil disguised as an angel and corrupting humans. He wants Leticia Violette Winchester's eternal death as the price for his help. Leticia's shoulders slumped as she asked helplessly if there is something Zion wanted to achieve through her. As she expected, there was something he wanted. Zion wanted to find the culprit who murdered his beloved one. From what he knows, the culprit lived in Northland. He needs someone familiar with high society in Northland and dig up information from people, and he wants Leticia to take that role. Zion gave her a satisfied look as he saw that Leticia had quite the sense of humor when she said that people in Northland knew her and even attended her wedding. Zion said that he will give Leticia a new identity and a new face that no one would recognize, even the person who abandoned her. After hearing the explanation, Leticia was skeptical. Is it possible to change her face to someone else's? Leaving her with a confused mind, Zion continued speaking confidently that he can do it because he is the Almighty Saul. Leticia was confused. Why would Zion do something like this for Leticia when they were just strangers and they are not close enough to discuss such a serious proposal? Zion easily dismissed it because they had met before at Leticia's wedding, where he also told Leticia to run away from Aster Winchester. But Leticia ignored him because she loved Aster at that time. He is right, she will never become their family. Leticia bit her lip. What would happen if she just ran away instead of crying on her father's chest asking for his blessing for her marriage to Aster? She would not be abandoned and broken like this. When she thought about it, her tears suddenly burst. Quietly fiddled with her ring. Leticia intended to hand it to Zion as a reward for saving her life because that's all she had. It was her wedding ring, a platinum ring with a crystal that was too shabby to be owned by the daughter-in-law of a marquis. When she received the ring, the Marquis of Winchester was still experiencing financial difficulties. Aster was very concerned about it and promised her. Once his business was successful, he would buy very expensive rings with large diamonds that everyone would envy. But once he succeeded, he bought Lianka a necklace in the first place. It was a very precious necklace with pink diamonds, identical to her eyes. That's when Leticia finally realized that her husband was a jerk. Zion, who saw that, laughed like there was something funny in front of him. There was excitement in his eyes, as if her misfortune was of little interest to Zion. He was curious about people like Leticia who chose a path that was sure to lead to destruction. He wanted to see how far they could go and when they would realize it. And this is what Leticia gets in return for having Aster Winchester in her life. She shoveled sand against the tide. As Longaro said, finding her collapsed on the riverside must have been a coincidence. However, their choice to save her was thoroughly calculated. She didn't know what Zion was trying to do or what he was going to use her for, but it looked like he would grant her what she wanted most in return. Leticia asked again for confirmation if he would really help her get revenge. And he said yes. And a deal has been made. Once she said it, Zion ordered her to kiss the top of his feet. Is he crazy? Leticia thought so, but when her eyes met, she couldn't say anything. She felt like she was captivated by him just by looking at him. To her dazed state, Longaro explained on his behalf. In the Holy Empire of Westeros, there is a custom of kissing the feet of the royal family when pledging undying loyalty, which means dedicating the rest of your life to the other person. Leticia had heard about it. No matter how far across the ocean you are on a continent, you are bound to hear rumors. The progenitors of the Westeros royal family were demigods. He is said to have used his divine powers to have a special pledge from his subordinates. This custom remained and became a kind of imperial tradition. In the end, the Zion's demands were simple. She was told to mortgage the rest of her life. His smiling eyes warned, "Once it's him, there's no turning back. It means Leticia Violet Winchester will disappear from this world." It rather is good. She was planning on killing herself after she finished all anyway. She is sure he won't betray her. Even if he does, she just need to add one name to her long list of revenge. Since she had nothing to lose, it was easy to make up her mind. As she stood up, she felt a sharp pain in her wound, but it was nothing compared to the pain that tore her heart apart. A foolish woman who endured everything until she was killed by the sly mistress who scorned her. A foolish woman who forked up all her family's money for her cheating husband. A no-good daughter who drove her kind father to death. It was a golden opportunity to erase all of that. Leticia knelt before him, and with a feeling of prayer before Almighty God, she slowly kissed the top of Zion's feet. The moment she raised her head and saw him, Leticia was startled. A bluish pattern glowed on Zion's left hand. Before she could ask, he reached out and touched Leticia's forehead. Her eyes widened in surprise and his cool gaze met in the air. A strange voice rang in her head.
"Leticia Violette Winchester, from now until the end of your life, you will serve me as a servant and obey my commands."
The forehead where his hand touched was hot as if a fire had been set on it. It wasn't painful, but it felt like something was cutting into her soul through her skin. As soon as Zion removed his hand, the strange heat disappeared. Leticia touched her forehead with a puzzled expression. Leticia felt strange when she looked at the short woman with brown hair reflected in the mirror. Her skin was white, and her features were well defined. At first glance it looked neat. However, she had lost so much weight that her eyebrows and cheekbones were visible and the corners of her eyes and mouth were drooping, making her look depressed. Zion asked, reaching out and grabbing her chin, looking into her eyes. The distance was close enough to see each other's eyelashes. It was burdensome to be stared at intensely. She slightly avoiding his gaze and answered quickly. Zion, who spoke refreshingly, said that her eyes cannot be weak because eyes are the window to the soul. He chuckled at her flinch and started in earnest. His large hands, with shining bluish patterns, covered her face. Leticia, who didn't know what was happening, felt anxious. It was just as Zion said, even if the face changed, the essence was still Leticia Violet. She had no choice but to be afraid that she'd blow up the second chance she had been getting with her own hands. Zion continued, carefully checking how the bridge of her nose. He lowered his gaze and whisper, telling her to forget all the random thoughts and then just move following his orders like a chess piece. He would not support her with the sweet words, but it doesn't mean that she can underestimate herself. It was an arrogant remark that hurt her feelings. But ironically, Leticia felt a little relieved. The man in front of her was not an ordinary being. And she believed, if she followed his words faithfully, she would reach her destination one day. Although she didn't know whether she was alive or dead in the end. Zion, who had been playing with Leticia's face like bread dough for some time, let go of her face and stepped away. And now, Leticia Violet is finally gone,